Well, hello again, my beautiful souls. You've found your way back to Spirit Tales with Auntie Shia, where stories of roots, rituals, and ancestral justice come alive. I've set the table, and I'm glad you're here to join me. Tonight, I've got a story about a bell. Not just any bell, but one with a purpose far greater than anyone could have imagined. This bell carried warnings, protection, and the undeniable power of our ancestors. When it rang, it wasn't a sound to be ignored. So, grab a cup of something warm, get comfortable, and settle in. This tale just might make you think twice before following the sound of a bell you weren't meant to hear. This story takes us to a stretch of land thick with bayous and cypress trees, where the air always seemed heavy with secrets. On the edge of those woods stood an old plantation house, its walls crumbling, overtaken by vines. People whispered that the place was cursed, that spirits still roamed its grounds, watching and waiting. But our story begins not in the ruins, but with Elias, a curious young man who lived in a cabin just beyond the bayou. Elias was the kind of boy who couldn't leave well enough alone. If there was a locked door, he wanted to know what was behind it. If there was a warning, he saw it as an invitation. The only person who could keep Elias in check was his grandmother, Miss Alma. She was a small woman with a voice that could shake the rafters and a presence that demanded respect. Miss Alma had seen things in her time. Things she didn't talk about often, but when she did, you'd best listen. "There's a bell out there," she told Elias one evening, her voice low and steady, "hung by hands that wanted to keep us safe. If you ever hear it ring, you leave. No questions, no hesitation. You turn yourself around and go." Elias chuckled, brushing off her words. "What's a little bell gonna do to me, Grandma?" Miss Alma's gaze turned sharp, her voice cutting through his bravado. "It's not the bell, boy. It's what follows it." Her words stayed with him, though Elias wouldn't admit it. Curiosity, after all, was a stubborn thing. One humid summer evening, restless and bored, Elias found himself wandering farther than he ever had before. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows as he meandered through the woods. The deeper he went, the quieter it became. No birds, no insects, just the sound of his own footsteps. And then, faintly, he heard it, a single, high-pitched ring. At first, Elias thought he was imagining things, but then the sound came again, clearer this time. A chill ran down his spine, though he couldn't say why. He remembered Miss Alma's words, but pushed them aside. The sound seemed to call to his curiosity. He followed it, weaving through the underbrush, the trees growing denser with each step. The air grew thick and heavy, making it hard to breathe. Finally, he emerged into a small clearing. In the center stood an old, rusted iron pole. Hanging from it by a frayed cord was a silver bell, tarnished and worn with age. It swayed gently, though there was no breeze to move it. Elias hesitated, unsure of what to do. The bell rang again, its sound sharp and clear, cutting through the stillness. As he stepped closer, the air seemed to shift around him. A low growl rumbled from the shadows of the woods, and the sound of footsteps, heavy and deliberate, echoed, though he saw no one. A deep, raspy voice broke the silence. "You were warned." Elias's heart pounded in his chest as he turned to run, but the woods seemed to twist and close in around him. The path he'd come down was gone, replaced by trees with branches that stretched like skeletal hands. He stumbled, falling hard to the ground. The bell rang again, louder this time, as though it were chasing him. Panic clawed at his chest as the growls grew louder, closer. Just when he thought he couldn't move, another sound broke through the chaos. A thunderous clap that seemed to shake the earth. And then he heard her voice. "Get up, boy." Elias looked up and saw her, Miss Alma. Or at least it was her spirit. She stood tall and fierce, her presence radiating strength. Her eyes burned with determination as she raised her hand, and the ringing bell suddenly went silent. The growls stopped. The trees stilled. The air grew calm once more. Miss Alma turned to Elias, her voice soft but firm. "You were warned. This place ain't for the living. Go home, and don't you ever come back." Elias didn't need to be told twice. He scrambled to his feet and ran, not stopping until he reached the safety of his cabin. He never spoke of that night, but he carried the memory of it with him always. Later, he learned the truth. The bell had been placed there long ago by enslaved men and women, a warning system to signal danger, whether from overseers, intruders, or forces darker than the eye could see. Even after their passing, the bell remained, protecting the land and those who honored its purpose. Elias came to understand that his grandmother's stories weren't just tales to keep him in line. They were truths passed down to protect him, lessons woven with the wisdom of those who had come before. Ah, my beautiful souls, the wisdom of our ancestors isn't something to take lightly. That bell wasn't just a sound, it was a voice, echoing through time to protect those who listened. We carry their strength in our veins, their warnings in our hearts. And when they tell us to move, to listen, to leave, we must honor their wisdom. Do you have your own signs or stories passed down through generations? Maybe a warning, a song, or a ritual that keeps you safe. Hold those close. They are the gifts of the past, guiding us into the future. Until next time, stay safe, stay strong, and as always, stay rooted.